Hello again to an episode of QQ, Quality Control. This is from Second Perspective. My name is Paul Weston, and with me is Torin McLaughlin and Sue Min Park. Today we're going to be talking about the tale of Princess Kaguya. Sue's going to give us some of the basic information to get right to it. Before she does that, just remember this is a quick, spoiler-free review on basically giving you reasons why you should or should not see the film. Sue?
Okay. Hi. This was directed by Isao Takahata, who also directed Grave of the Fireflies, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but I'm gonna mention it because I've seen it. It's Heidi, a Girl from the Alps. It's based on the Heidi the Folk Tale, or whatever, the book from Germany. And it was a TV series, and it was pretty amazing growing up in Korea watching it. And some of the actors that are notable, I guess. It stars Akiya Sakura, Kengo Kora, Takeuchi, and Nobuko Miyamoto. I tried.
Torin's going to give us a quick synopsis here.
Sweet. And just so you know, I think it was a little over 2 hours. I think it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes.
Sort of thing. Which is a, big disclaimer. So just a quick synopsis there. It's a tale of Princess Kaguya, who is a mystical, magical princess discovered by a bamboo cutter while he's out one day in the bamboo forest. He cuts through a stalk and finds a princess. She's super tiny. He brings him home to his wife, and she grows rapidly, mysteriously, magically. And basically he finds some other presents, and they take her to the city, and it's about her adaptation to the city and her struggle to assert her independence and also on her family in the civilized context versus the natural context, and her split will, and basically that's it. That's basically it.
That's good enough.
I think one other thing that I forgot to mention is that the music's by Hisaishi Joe, or Joe Hisaishi in English terms.
Yeah, it's the music's quite good, but we'll get to that. We're just gonna go right to the grades that we want to give the film. It's a Studio Ghibli film, but man, I'm giving it a C.
Oh, we're doing the ABC?
I'm going to do is numbers.
I was going to do numbers as well.
They don't understand. We do letters here. Nathan would be really pissed. You guys start not doing letters.
Okay.
Well, okay, what's the number, and we'll translate it in the Canadian system.
60.
It's a C.
There you go.
It's a C? Okay, then 58. Is that still a C?
I think 56 is a cutoff for a C. Anyway, I'm going to go with the same. I give it like a 6 out of 10 or a C. Not even a C+. I won't even vacillate there. It's a C, definitely.
Yeah, it's a C. We're just going to quickly go through the strengths and weaknesses of why we gave it that letter. Some strengths for me. I mean, this is a Studio Ghibli film. There are some really nice aspects to it. A few scenes, we should just straight up mention the really interesting visual style. It looks, most of it looks like sort of hand-drawn. There are a few parts where it's looks almost painted in watercolor or something of the like. And it uses that art direction and that particular visual style in a few scenes really, really well. There's a part where she runs away from some place, and it really invokes the sense of speed and running super well.
There's a totally different style as well.
Yeah, it moves to a more expressionistic style in that moment. Yeah.
And
buzzwords.
Yeah. And the first 20 or 25 minutes for me still creates the really. Torin said this to me when we were just sort of talking about it before we recorded this, that whenever you watch a Studio Ghibli film, you feel safe, and I sort of equate that to a warm sensation. Oddly enough.
Where is that warm sensation located?
So the first 20-25 minutes still creates that. The protagonist, for me, given some of her circumstances, it's quite problematic, but we'll talk about it in the discussion, which will be full of spoilers. I feel like she's still a fairly strong problem solver, and the film does do a good job of making me feel nostalgic for the first 20 minutes of the film. When we're suffering through the last hour and a half.
Right.
What are some of the strengths that you guys?
Accurate.
Yeah. What are some of the quick non-spoiler strengths that you guys have?
The strength. I'll start with the strength. Is the fact that it's a different style of animation that we have seen. I guess, like, even, like, on big screen, we don't tend to see this kind of style, which it seems like, for me, when I was looking at the images, it kind of felt like they had hand-drawn everything, and then they didn't bother going through the machine and, you know, doing all sorts of fancy things to make it look more like, I guess, naturally animation or whatever. And that spoke to the fact that this is based on a folklore, you know? And the strength it had was, I agree with the fact that she was a pretty strong, independent character, who, I guess, follows the independent character, but in that context, which is the culture at the time, like, because this is a period piece, which, I guess, leading into the weaknesses, didn't help me resonate with her fully the entire time, though I did understand what she had to go through, and what she had to do, what she couldn't do, and all that stuff. Another weaknesses is the fact that the mystical stuff that started is sort of dropped in the middle, and then it's very, like, they rush to pick it up by the end, and I was curious to see, like, what the actual story was, the folklore, and if that did that as well.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that it had me do as well, was, like, think about what is the traditional format of the legend itself, and how has it been done before, and do comparisons, see if they did an adaptation straight up, or if they changed anything around. Just a quick strength, like maybe 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses for me, unless you want to do that later. Anyway, strengths were, the art direction was phenomenal, it really was. In all sorts of different types of scenes, like the representational format changes slightly, it goes from more to less realistic according to the character's state of mind, and it does it extremely well. There's lots to look at, and on a big screen you might think that, like, a watercolor, which is very sparse and sparing in its detail, and more about the sort of balance of elements than I don't know, that's sort of a complicated too deep to discuss right now, sorry. It's beautiful, and even on the big screen you don't get tired looking at it. It's very refreshing. And there's a lot of white space. It's really interesting. You feel a page, like Suyu was saying, you feel the traditional story coming through in the sort of folk aspect of the animation. The music was also phenomenal, and in a lot of respects this sort of felt like an opera off the page, you know, like a pop-up opera, which sort of leads into a weakness, because I thought that sometimes the dialogue was lacking, where they used music to narrate intense emotional passages, and on a lot of occasions were successful. Alternately, some of them were not very successful, and there was just a lot of blank space and sort of dead call and response, and just like the crying out of names and that sort of thing, and high melodrama that opera gets away with because of all of the technical stuff that goes into actually mounting a production like that. So you begin to appreciate it for other reasons than a story you've already heard, and that would probably be the last reason why I found this film sort of flat, was because it didn't do anything new. I've seen the story structure a lot before, you know, Disney princesses and that sort of thing, who don't want to be princesses in some certain way, and struggle to assert their independence and reclaim their place in the natural world, reclaim like a long lost love or something like that. And it just didn't do anything sort of for me culturally. Didn't seem to change much. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, just to cap off the weaknesses, I mean, they've basically said the majority parts. For me, it felt like the story structure was just, it was all over the place. I don't know if the story actually really knew what it was trying to say. As Sue says, the magic of sort of, because what makes a lot of Studio Ghibli films interesting is that it often follows a very simple story, but it has sort of just 1 or 2 pieces of magic that kind of flips everything on its head. But this one, yeah, it literally just sort of drops it, or it pretends it doesn't even exist for a while until it needs it again. And it's just, it's really unfortunate, because I think we're all Studio Ghibli lovers here, and it just sort of crapped the bed a little bit. Yeah, in terms of recommendation, don't go see it.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I was
don't spend money on the theater.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you know, if you know, you see it on like some sort of cheap deal on like iTunes or something in the future, or like if you just like, if you like eventually, yeah, you probably will want to see this just because it is a Studio Ghibli film, but don't spend the money that we did to go see it.
No, I actually disagree. There is a merit in watching a Studio Ghibli film in theaters, and there was like only one theater that showed this, right?
Yeah.
And even though afterwards we were kind of disappointed, it is kind of hard to get that experience of watching a Studio Ghibli animation, and which also doesn't exist anymore, by the way.
On the big screen.
Yeah, on the big screen, and this is probably one of the last ones that we can probably see, and that's there's a merit to that, and you can also hear the Japanese. I think we all prefer to go watch it in the Japanese actor voices.
Yeah, that's a big thing too.
They saw it subbed. And I saw it dubbed, and I think I probably would have liked to have seen it subbed.
Yeah, because those voices were probably directed by the actual director, and I was gonna say something, but I forget what it was.
We'll leave it for the discussion.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't recommend going to see it. I would rather have spent the $9 on like food or beer. To be honest, I would probably feel sad not to have seen it like at some point, but I probably could have skipped the big screen experience despite it being like one of the last ones and that sort of thing. And Isao Takahata like not doing a film for 13 years and all of a sudden, oh my god, he's back, and like, but the film doesn't, it falls flat.
Yeah.
It does.
So, and then it's going to be really interesting when you guys look at it in Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. It's got like, as of this recording, 89%. It's got 8.2 on IMDb.
Big deal.
Don't listen to them. They're lying to you. Anyways, this is the not so short review of The Tale of Princess Kaguya, and we're going to go into the spoiler-filled discussion of why I'm just not particularly fond of the film. And yeah, so hopefully we see you there. Again, this is Paul Weston, Torin McLaughlin, and Seaman Park.